Gary, it's no secret you've helped those who are struggling over the years. What is the common denominator among the challenges those people face, and what we can learn from this?
I mean, I'd be curious, is this from somebody who's trying to help other people?
This came on the website anonymously.
Anonymous. Okay.
What is the common denominator of the challenges that the people that are really struggling that they face, and what can we learn from it? So, what is something that a lot of you see over and over?
The common denominator is that people are stuck in secret patterns of sin, or not so secret, but I think it's that. So there's shame, and there's always the assumption from people that if somebody, or you or whoever, if somebody knew everything about me, they wouldn't love me and they wouldn't care for me. And everybody's deepest need is to be wanted and cared for by people, right? To belong. Everybody wants that. Everybody. Even people that do not seem that way, who are very abrasive and they all desperately want to be loved and cared for, right? And so I feel like people that I deal with that are really broken, they have stuff going on where they're just like, and then things have happened to them, and those things, I think that it's spiritual warfare. I think that the devil uses really awful things that happen to people, and he just keeps them really sick. And then what happens is hurt people. Yeah. So now you have this cycle of people, like, obviously awful things having happened to them. They start doing awful things to others. Like, most people that do horrific things have had, as a general rule, there's no excuses. Everybody's accountable. I'm not excuse making. Nobody gets to hold up the victim card. But the explanation helps. And when you can realize, hey, why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. So my experience, and I'm sure yours has too, because you talk to a lot of guys that are struggling in, of similar ways, really. It's like, hey, there's always this idea, and women too. It's just like, they've just had tragic situations, and then that just snowballs into a life that seems. And the interesting thing is that even if you have had horrific things happen to you, or just a very challenging life, you still can kind of like fumble along, especially in the culture we're in, where, like, there's a lot of supports, and you're relatively, like, if you took someone with some of the things that happen to them in our world and you move them into another country, or you move them into, a poor family in another area, their life would probably look way worse. But they are, it's the same level of brokenness, but because they're, like, let's say in, our culture's Dutch, and they're relatively well off in our community, and there's, they've went to a school where they're learning, and they're kind of just well cared for, like practically well cared for, not in every way, but well cared for physically. It hides a multitude of things. So what I experience is people that are like 40, 50, 60 that are just so broken and so just, they're emotionally flatlined a lot of the time.
Shell
right?
of themselves
of what they could be if they just found some level of, a healing, right, from the hurt that's happened. So that's been the beautiful thing of the journey, like you and I have been on, where it's with other people too. It's just like, man, you see people that literally come alive, and they're like,
it's so cool.
It's humbling. And all of a sudden, and then you go from being like, hey, this person's even keeled, to this person experiences great joy and deep sadness, right? Which is how we're created. Like, we're created to weep, and we're created to laugh, right? And if you're not doing any of those things on that regular basis, like,
something's wrong.
Something's not right there, right? So
reminds me of what Trey said to me last night. He said, isolation is the devil's main buddy.
Yeah. Everybody's running from community, right, when they're struggling, right? Which is so ironic, because, of course, that's the point when you most need it. Yeah. If I think back to when I was hating myself, like, I was literally by myself, just totally.
Well, that's what Adam and Eve did, right?
Weeping.
Adam and Eve sinned, and they ran from God. They went and hid.
Duck for cover.
Because they didn't really also understand who God really is too. Because if you have an understanding of God, that He's, not going to have mercy on you, then, other people won't either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just getting real is. It's so powerful, and but yeah, I do also agree that the culture we live in with especially wealth really hides the brokenness, but it is not any less broken.
No, but it's really hard then. I remember distinctly being like 19 or 20, being relatively well off, having a nice car, having a good job, lots of money for a young guy, and looking in the mirror thinking, like, how come you are so screwed up? Like, this is just BS, man. Like, and you have no excuse in your life, like, how, but just hurting, right? And just being totally, and I think to go from that spot to go to somebody and admit that, it's extremely difficult.
Exactly, yeah.
At 20, let alone at 40 or 50 or 60, when you're like, you're plodding along doing all the quote unquote right things, right? Outwardly. So anyways, that's been my experience.
Yeah. Okay. I know you love talking about real estate. Hey guys, if you enjoy that episode and were blessed by it, would you be willing to support the show? That would help a lot in creating more content, improving the quality of the content, putting the production value, getting more guests on, and me being able to spend more time and energy towards it. So if you're interested in doing that, you can click up here and it'll take you to a support page. But you can also subscribe to the podcast by clicking over here and doing that. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.